Okay. Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. I know it's a busy time of year for everybody, so I just really appreciate everyone taking the time to come out, and especially thanks to the folks on Zoom. So for a reminder to everybody, this meeting is being we're doing it live and virtual. So there's some folks on the Zoom call, and we're recording the Zoom call, and we'll post the meeting on the website via a YouTube link when we wrap up. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to go through some Civic League business. Should be pretty brief. We'll talk about an exciting new local business that we have. And then the main topic tonight will be Norfolk Public Schools, and specifically tonight the topic will be the 5-year strategic plan and the future of Maury High School. So we're very glad to have Dr. Gabriel here that's presenting tonight. I just also want to recognize some other folks in the room. So Courtney, everyone, you're very familiar with Courtney here, West Kent resident. We have Mr. Jeremy McGee, who's with the Planning Commission, and he also is on the Architectural Review Board from the Planning Commission. And also we have Tanya Bassine, a West Kent resident and neighbor. So I think you're all familiar with Tanya. So appreciate everyone being here. I also want to recognize a few folks because of the topic and some interest around the city, basically. There's some folks here representing the Ghent Neighborhood League. Henry is here from the Ghent Neighborhood. He's, I believe, twice served president of the Ghent Neighborhood League. And then we have Laura Burns on the Zoom call, I believe, and she's from the Colonial Place Riverview Civic League. I'll check to see who's all on there in a few minutes. And so to start, I'm just going to go through a couple of quick updates. One topic that's been kind of an ongoing topic of discussion has been the Greenway Court Apartments. And so the Greenway Court Apartments, Hague Properties, had filed with the Board of Zoning Appeals for a zoning appeal, in which we've talked about whether or not they're going to need to fill in the basement well. They have pulled back their appeal, and they're no longer pursuing that zoning. So they are a variance. And so we heard from the architect yesterday, they're revoking that, and they're going to fill in the basement per FEMA regulations. Beyond that, like what they're planning to do with the Greenway Court Apartments, I can't speak to. I'm assuming at some point, as far as you spoke to the planning department this week, right now what they have approved is a replacement of the roof, and that is it. And then I think that all the rest of their plans for the Greenway Court Apartments are to be determined as they apply for various building permits with the city. So that's the update on that. So there's been a lot of talk over the months and years about the traffic, the parking, and speeding throughout the neighborhood. And I just wanted to kind of summarize where we're at with that. We've had good engagement with the city transportation department. They're very receptive to our feedback. But I must say that the feedback, either good or bad, has kind of died off on this topic. I don't know if it's because we've been talking about it so much, but it is important that if you've seen positive changes with parking enforcement in Chelsea or speeding or other traffic related things, to continue to give us feedback, both positive and negative, because that gives us a good sense so that when the city folks, like when I go to the Ghent Task Force meeting or the Hampton Boulevard Task Force or any of these other things, I don't want to just be giving my personal opinion. I want to be hearing from the neighborhood. So please continue to provide that feedback to me. On the topic of traffic and other such things, we had a very productive Hampton Boulevard Task Force meeting here a month and a half, 2 months ago. And again, yesterday, Courtney, on the way home from work, I saw a truck pulled over at 4:30 in the afternoon on Hampton Boulevard. So the enforcement of the hours for the trucks has been significantly improved. And I'm not sure that the deterrent effect is there yet, because there's still plenty of trucks. But it's only a matter of time until the trucks start to know that they're going to get a ticket outside of the normal hours. So it's never. So basically between 4 p.m. and 6 a.m. through the night, no trucks are allowed on Hampton Boulevard. And if you see that, as we talked about in our newsletter last week, please give us that feedback, because again, it's something that we want to speak from hearing from residents and as much like kind of data or anecdotally informed rather than just our opinions on this topic. But we're grateful that we're seeing some positive improvement there. Another source of feedback we've gotten, and we spoke about in the newsletter briefly, is street sweeping. So we worked pretty hard to create a relationship with the city regarding what's going on. We got the street sweeping signs. We've got great partnerships with folks around the neighborhood that are assisting and getting those signs put out every month. And that's great. And what we've seen is around the neighborhood, people doing what we asked them to do, which is moving their cars and doing the things that we need them to do to keep the streets cleaned, because that is a huge thing for rainwater mitigation in the neighborhood, right? When all those leaves fall and clog up all those drains, that's when you're getting a lot of this flash flooding in the neighborhood. I can't say enough how much we appreciate that. However, we have gotten some feedback that we're following the plan, but the city, street sweeping folks are not following said plan. So we fed that back. We're waiting to hear back from them. We just reached out here earlier this week. So we'll continue that conversation. And so it's, as with anything else right now in kind of this post-pandemic era, everyone's still dealing with staffing challenges. And so they're adapting to the amount of manpower they have. So really for us, the conversation with the city at this point is like, got it. What are we doing so that we can all just run the same set play at the same time, right? So if it's Wednesdays, north side of the street, Thursday, south side of the street, whatever it is, I'm sure based on what we saw that the neighborhood will respond to what the new plan is.
Sir, just a second on that. Recognize the month of December. The first Thursday occurs before the first Wednesday. So
it's a week, it's 6 days apart this coming month. Yeah.
Signs will be out for both those weeks.
Yeah. So before I turn it over to Officer Dreer, I just want to remind everybody that we take the month of December off. So no meeting in December, and we'll see you all again in January. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to see you. We're just not going to see you in here with us with one of these meetings, because we have some social events coming up here this month that Kate's going to talk about. But now I'm going to turn it over to Officer Dreer and then Casey to talk about a neighborhood safety update.
Good evening. This is your crime stats from October 21st until today. So you guys are not special, okay? Car larcenies are still up. The larcenies from auto are still up, okay? You had a total of 6 within that time period. You had 2 larceny parts from auto and 1 stolen auto. Now, the stolen auto, the keys were left inside and it was unlocked. So I'm just going to read the block numbers real quick. You had a larceny from auto in 1300 block of Westover. There was 2 actually in the 1300 block of Westover. 1200 block of Spotswood. Brandon, 1400 block of Westover. Then you had larceny parts from auto, which a set of license plates were stolen. 1000 block of Gates Avenue and 1000 block of Harrington. And the stolen vehicle where the keys were left inside was 1300 block of Mallory Court. The majority of these larcenies from auto are with the vehicles being left unlocked. Okay, and again, I got to stress, and I'm seeing it all over the areas that I'm responsible for, is firearms still getting stolen out of cars, still being left in the cars, and just being out in the open. Okay, I mean, you guys are just, not you guys, but folks are just inviting people to help themselves. If they, got a briefcase, who knows what's in it. So please bring it inside. If you got a responsible gun owner, please lock it up somehow. That's it. Any questions for this week? Yes.
So can you describe, so when a firearm is stolen from the car, like can you explain, like, so how you first know that what happens after the gun owner who has left their unlocked car?
Well, that's going to be up to the detectives that handle the case, whether they're going to get charged for being reckless handling of the firearm or something like that. That's all past my expertise. Okay.
Like, is that what it is? Like, if you leave your handgun in the car, is that considered reckless?
It can be. Yeah, it can be.
Like, what conditions do you know?
As
yeah, or just like what will that qualify? Like,
just not being responsible with the firearm. Yeah.
keeping it locked up.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what specific the note says.
Yeah.
I have no idea off the top of my
So
head.
I guess I could ask this question a little better. So is it that the owner is then telling, that my gun was stolen from my car, that's what was stolen when they're calling it in? Or is it that you're finding the gun somewhere else being used for something else and it's being traced back to the gun owner?
Twofold. Yeah, it could be either way. I mean, hopefully we're getting notified right away so they can give us the information. We can enter that gun, as being lost.
It is a law
Or
in
stolen.
Virginia now
That's
to,
why it's
you
important.
have to, it is unlawful to not report a
Yeah.
stolen firearm.
Right. That's why I'm asking, like,
So hopefully we're not finding it.
you know how to distinguish that so that,
Yeah, hopefully we're not finding. And it's, oh, hey, so and so. Your last one you registered as gun, where was your gun when you last saw it?
right,
It was in my car. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where it was. That type of stuff.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Have the police recovered any of these weapons?
I'm sure they have.
Here,
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I specifically, I couldn't tell you.
because my guess is that they haven't recovered many of them.
No, I mean, we cover a lot of guns, whether they, yeah. Again, it's not reported and we don't know about it. So if it's not reported, they don't have information on it, then we don't know it's stolen, you know what I mean? So. Hope I answered that.
Yes, you did, thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you. I looked up that, what you inquired about. Small pass away.
Um, Claremont and Azalea, so I knew. Unfortunately, one of our neighbors passed away, which was the circumstance, so. I was gonna invite Casey up to just briefly talk about one portion of her safety update from the newsletter. Yeah.
Just quickly, there's these e-commerce exchange zones that the MPD is promoting super hard right now because we're leading into the holiday season. So we're going to be looking for a lot of porch piracy. People are shopping early. So MPD is expecting this sort of porch piracy season to be longer this year because we're all doing our shopping a little bit earlier. So just be cognizant of that. Have your neighbors pull in your packages if you're going to be out of town or away from, still at work late or whatever. And then these e-commerce exchange zones are marketplace purchases. And I just had this happen to me night before last, where my husband had organized a toy marketplace exchange. And then I didn't know about it. And they showed up and my sons were just like, hey, like, welcome to the house. And it was like, oh my gosh, we need to communicate on that a little better. So what this does is thankfully they were just like the nicest couple for their like 1-year-old grandbaby. So it worked out okay. But I was like, well, listen, no, not again. Let's use this. So this is what we're doing from now on. And it's you get the closest precinct to us is the operating office, I believe, which is about 17 minutes away, Virginia Beach Boulevard. Operations Center, sorry.
3661 East Virginia Beach Boulevard.
Yep, that is the closest one to us, about 15 minutes away. It's monitored, video camera, your interaction. So you can really not get scrooged or taken advantage of, because MPD is seeing an uptick in robberies from OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, where people are going to do exchanges and getting robbed or, getting scammed otherwise. So super important to just remember that that's not going away. That's just like a perennial thing we are having fun dealing with.
And
Yeah.
Casey put a hyperlink to this in the newsletter.
Yeah.
So if anybody's the Norfolk PD's link in the full description,
For sure.
I cut and pasted this out of it.
For sure. And just to sort of follow up with what Officer Greer was saying, there are around a dozen incidents that happen in our neighborhood every month. I've been tracking these incidents like in an Excel spreadsheet, trying to figure out like how it all works. And really, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays between 4 and 7 are the main times when all of this happens. So just remember, you're at home, you're hanging out, it's the early evening, dusk is setting, be outside. Lock everything up, including your garages, your gates, your doors. So that's pretty much it. But we had a really great safety update this past week. So I would urge you all to check out that awesome newsletter that Ms. Cheryl always sends out. So, and let me know if you have any questions. Westgate Civic League's WGCL Safety@gmail.com is where it all funnels in to me. If you have any questions, inquiries, troubles, complaints, and safety isn't just like crime or mischief. It's also just, hey, I picked this up on my camera, thought you should see it. I submitted this to the P3 app, check it out. So we just stay on top of it because people do find rings of youths like acting in different neighborhoods. There is not a heavy amount of organization to it, but there definitely is, stuff that is coordinated and happens, and people pop into our neighborhood and just pop right back out. So we have to be really vigilant. So it's all very transient. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions.
All right, so we'll move on to Kate. Talk about, I thought you had a question. So yeah, we'll give a couple updates on what we've been up to and then what's coming up.
You like that picture, Francis?
We have the chili champion here in the room. Mr. Francis.
His own chili powder for the chili. So
Brought it to a new level.
new level. I don't know if we're going to be able to top that next year, Francis. So first, I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped, who volunteered, who came out to our Hocus Pocus party. It was a lot of fun. Outside the Lions Art Studio, handled all the pumpkin painting. Yorgos helped coordinate the donation of the pumpkins. So it was just really a great community effort and everyone had a wonderful time. We also did Best Decorated Block and Best Decorated House. So Brandon Avenue was definitely all out this year. We really thought Prince Stan was gonna be the winner, but Brandon was the winner. And then we talked about Francis, who's the winner for the chili cook-off this year. And just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who's been donating. We've been getting donations in, and we really appreciate it because all of the donations help make things like our Hocus Pocus parties happen and the upcoming events that we have. So moving on to volunteer opportunities. This Sunday is the Norfolk Harbor Half Marathon station, or the water station that we do every year. And we're going to be probably looking for about 20 volunteers, 20 to 30. And so we'll have a link on our website. You can sign up there or just email wgclfeedback@gmail.com and we can go ahead and get you the info on where to show up. There's shifts starting at 7 a.m. all the way until about 9, and then it ends at 10:30. So last year we had our kids there, and say the runners much preferred getting water from the kids than the adults. So you could always bring your kids and then you could just sit back and sip some coffee and hang out. So that is this Sunday, the 20th. And then on the 19th, the Girl Scout Troop 396 clothing and home textiles. And you can drop off at 1015 Langley from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's going to be this Saturday. Let's see, signpost painting. We've talked about that a couple times, but just want to let everyone know that we have lots of signposts to paint. So if you want, we have put together these nifty paint kits.
This is a paint kit. This is all you need and an hour and a half, 2 hours of your time.
Yes.
To paint one of our wonderful West Kent signposts. So anybody that's interested, coordinate with us at the feedback email address and we can set you up with a kit and you can do it at your leisure.
Yeah.
And of course, some
Lots
folks you recognize here in the room are painting some of the posts. We've made some progress.
One signpost, that kit for one.
That's for one. We've got 3 kits. But,
Yeah.
If there's more,
It'll-
we can make-
I mean, you could probably
Each
do,
kit is good for one side.
Yes, no, the amount of paint in there is probably good for about 3 signs.
3 signposts. Yeah, you would just probably need a couple, more than a few people to help you. We're also going to be doing, we're going to be collecting greeting cards and artwork from kids around the neighborhood to drop off at the Signature Healthcare location on Hampton Boulevard. Really just for the holidays, for people who are alone, could use a little bit of some, holiday spirit in their lives. And also if you know any West Kent residents, if you have any neighbors that live by themselves and maybe are going to be alone during the holidays, let us know. And our plan is to collect everything. And on December 21st, we're going to drop it off at Signature. And then you know, if we have neighbors in the neighborhood, that we'll put something special together for them, whether it's cards and a little bit of artwork, something like that. So if you want to put together some greeting cards or your kids are making some artwork, you can just drop it off at our house. Just email the feedback email and I'll give you our address and drop it by. And I'm just going to have a stack and then we'll go ahead and drop that off on the 21st. And then lastly, the events that we have coming up, I think that's one slide back, David. We're doing another neighborhood breakfast. We had a lot of fun. We're going to do some kind of like winter theme crafts, some hot chocolate, and donuts. O's Donuts was a big hit last time. We're going to get 3 dozen, okay, guys? So we're not going to run out. And then we're going to do Yorko's Bagels again, and some Vessel coffee and some hot chocolate. So that'll be on December 3rd from 10 to 11:30. We're hoping we can do Graydon Place Park, but if the temperatures are too cold, then we're hoping we can maybe use this space. We've reached out to St. Andrews and we'll kind of finalize all that and just move indoors if we have to. Then let's see here. And during that event, we're actually going to be collecting new toys. The Urban Renewal Center is doing a toy drive for kids in 3rd grade through 8th grade and new toys. So just drop anything off at that event and then we will get that to them. The tree lighting that we all love so much is December 23rd, 6 p.m. More details will be coming out in the December newsletter for that. And then
One of our biggest events of the year. I mean, I think last year we had 300 people.
it was huge. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
We're looking to keep it.
And the DJ was awesome. I think he had a stand-up suit on. So yeah, Westover Garden Club organizes all of that and they're phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that again this year. On the 31st, we're going to do a noon New Year's Eve party for anyone who, or celebration, for anyone who can't stay awake till midnight. Bring your kids, just, you know, come and have some fun. We're going to have little like DIY noise makers for the kids and they can create those and then just mingle with your neighbors and we'll ring in the new year at noon and then we can go home and take a nap. And then let's see, we're definitely going to need some volunteers for both the neighborhood breakfast and the New Year's Eve party. So email the feedback email if you'd like to volunteer. If it's inside, we're probably going to end up having to do like an RSVP type of thing, but we'll keep you in the loop via email. And we might do a holiday happy hour stroll with Annie, who is our new events chair, and she will be coordinating all that. So we're kind of trying to figure out the logistics of it and if it would work. So we'll just keep you all posted. I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
We invited Trey here from Sanctuary Taco. I didn't see him come in. So I'm gonna pitch on behalf of Trey here. So we're gonna try to make a point of, if you think it's next slide, David, we're gonna make a point of just kind of highlighting new businesses. Oh, wait, we forgot one thing. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna do, we've been, it's been a kind of couple months in coming. So what I'd like to do now is, I think 2 or 3 months back, we pitched the need for new bylaws. We got some feedback from several residents. We posted the new bylaws on the website, and we've received feedback from a few folks. And so for now, what I'd like to do is propose a vote to adopt the new West Kent Civic League bylaws. And to summarize, it's basically getting us, the bylaws state what we actually do, as opposed to some strange version of what we don't do. So it doesn't really, in my opinion, does not represent any changes. There's no funny business going on here. It's just to get us with our bylaws. Anybody in favor of the new West Kent bylaws, please raise your hand. And then anyone against, please, anybody against, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but okay. So, all right. And we'll tally the votes here. If you're online and you're voting, please just make sure that you give your name and your address, and then David will tally it in the chat. Appreciate your help. Okay, so now we'll go on to the Sanctuary Taco. So Sanctuary Taco is it's been down in the Neon District, and they just opened a new location just on the other side of the tracks over at the Colony, which most folks know as IP Configure, the building that was renovated and turned into a wonderful new facility. And so Trey and some business partners opened up the second location of Sanctuary, I want to say about a month and a half ago. And Kate and I and the boys went over there recently, and it is delicious. I think it's like $4 a taco, and we got our fair share of tacos here last weekend. So I encourage everyone to go over there. It was kind of a soft opening. They're finishing up some of the artwork inside the building. They have one of their investors and part owners is an artist, and some of his work will be on display there. So I encourage everyone to try out the new business. They've got some specials throughout the week, and it's right along the ERT. So it's a great place to stop. All right. Okay, so now we'll shift over to like kind of the main discussion topic for tonight, and that is Norfolk Public Schools. And so there's been a lot of big things going on with Norfolk Public Schools. And really since I came into being president, one of the things that I wanted to do was to align ourselves to allow for greater engagement with NPS. And so one of the key things that we did is shift this meeting from Wednesday nights to Thursday nights to open up the ability, and with Tanya's suggestion of like, hey, how can we partner better with you? And she's like, well, for one, I would come to them if you didn't do them at the same time as school board meetings. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So we moved it, and now Tanya engaged every single night of the week. So we had many of you were present when we in April invited the principals from the schools that we feed into from the neighborhood, right? Taylor, Blair, and Maury, and the principals were able to talk about how their schools are doing and question and answer. And Tanya was here to kind of talk from the the division level perspective of what's going on with NPS. And we're back again for another topic of discussion on NPS. And so this time, Dr. Gabriel reached out, who is our representative on the school board. Super Ward 6 there is pictured on the left side of the screen. And she wanted to talk about the new NPS 5-year strategic plan that was recently adopted. And so she wants to talk about that, and then the ongoing topic of what to do with Maury High School, which is one of several schools that we are making plans and deciding what to do. And this follows in the heels of a thing that I participated in. I volunteered to serve on a committee that basically informed the overall capital improvement plan for NPS a couple years back, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so there's a kind of an overarching plan, and NPS put that out a year ago-ish. They kind of finalized all that work, and now this is kind of one of the pillars in that project. So I'll turn it over to you, and really appreciate you coming and offering to be here.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I really do enjoy coming out to the civic leagues and engaging with the community to hear all different perspectives. I do school visits, attend PTA meetings, and we get to hear from a variety of what we call our stakeholders. NPS is very near and dear to me. This is my 10th year serving on the school board. I am a graduate of Norfolk Public Schools. I didn't graduate from Maury. I graduated from Granby High School, but I still care a lot about Maury and what the future of it will hold. I have 4 children. They're in elementary, middle, and not quite yet in high school. And so I have a lot of skin in the game myself for what Norfolk Public Schools means to the city and what the city can do in order to partner with our school division. Strong city really means that you also have an equally strong school division, and that's what we want. We want our children to come and feel welcomed in a school division that is safe, that is welcoming, that is academically rigorous, and can really help every child reach their fullest potential. And that's really why I am so vested in our school division. My background is that I'm a pediatrician. I work at CHKD. So I live and breathe children all day long. And I know that not only is their health important, but their educational well-being is just as important so that they can be successful. So I wanted to come and talk with you about two big topics, and that is the strategic plan and basically kind of a perspective as to where we are with Maury High School, because we're still not done with what needs to happen there. So let's first start talking about the strategic plan. And I believe David, right? David has that and can pull it up. Our division, anyone knows if you want to go somewhere, you have to have a map, right, to get you there, or at least Surrey or GPS at this point in time. Well, we needed to have something to kind of carry us over for the next 5 years, especially coming out of COVID. Norfolk was especially hit hard with COVID because we have a lot of students who have needs. We serve we would consider and reduce lunch. Those families especially hard. We saw lots of reading and math. We needed to make sure that we, number one, had our eye on what needed to be done in order to quickly advance those scores back to pre-pandemic, and then continue our process of advancing it even further because our work still hadn't gotten finished. And so together with the superintendent, areas of focus, and if we could just kind of scroll through my page to end on. Right here, yep. So based upon a lot of community feedback, community meetings, surveys, processes going back and forth between the board, the superintendent, and a group that we collaborated with, we kind of landed on these areas: student excellence, workforce, resources, community, and safety and climate. And basically what it boils down to are these are going to be our target areas that we want to focus on over the next 5 years in order to achieve those goals of academic rigor, safety, being a warm, caring, welcoming school environment. At the crux of all of this, what we have learned is that our teachers are probably our most important, valuable resource when it comes to educating our children. That teacher that is in front of the child has the ability to make the biggest advances for that student possible. And we as a board have to do whatever is necessary in order to support that teacher, to keep that teacher in our division, and to make sure that that teacher feels valued and that we receive their feedback. So we have a lot of plans and structures and policy kind of overview in place in order to make sure that that happens. Aligning our resources means looking at where we allocate funds, where we allocate our teachers, where we allocate things like equipment, programming, things in order to make sure that our students are getting what they need. As I mentioned before, Norfolk Public Schools has a large percentage of its students who are economically disadvantaged. And so students who have a higher need more resources. And so we have to make sure that we're allocating what we call equitably in order to all of those school divisions. So some school divisions may not need as many reading specialists as others. And so we have to make sure that those items are allocated in an efficient and equitable manner. As far as community goes, we want to kind of regain our relationship with the community. COVID really put a damper on parents coming into schools. I mean, we couldn't do PTA meetings, everything had to be virtual. It was very, not personal. But I can tell you just in this year alone, with the amount of participation that we have had with parents getting things back involved, the Halloween celebrations, my daughter just had a big music concert the other night, and everybody was just so happy to be together. So first we had to start at the schoolhouse and rein in our PTAs, get those back established. And now what we're really trying to do with our Department of Community Engagement is to really now branch out to businesses, faith-based leaders, our civic leagues, our partners that we need, because it's all hands on deck
when it comes to our kids and making Norfolk Public Schools a successful entity within the city of Norfolk. And then finally, safety and climate. You know, this is so important for all of us. And I mean, just thinking about what happened at UVA just not only a couple of days ago, it's horrific to think that this happened in Norfolk. And unfortunately, our superintendent is like, it's not a matter of if, I have to think of it as when. And we never want to think that way. But the potential is there and we have to be ready for it. But it's not just safety as in gun violence, but it's also making students feel welcome, no matter who they are, what they express, what their feelings are. We have to make sure that bullying is not a big deal. Students need to feel welcome in school. We want to decrease barriers that they might have in order to make sure that their academic success is at their fullest potential. We also want to make sure that parents feel like our schools are safe to send their children. We go through a lot of discussions as a board with regards to safety, teachers feeling safe, students feeling safe. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I can tell you that there are certainly efforts being made, not just within the budget, but in policy that directly ties to areas such as this. One of my personal areas that I like to push are that we've been able to incorporate also in safety and climate is physical fitness. Because as the kids had to go on COVID break, we had to suspend a lot of our sporting activities. And that really put a damper on a lot of kids. We've seen a huge rise in obesity just with our kids and a lot of social emotional factors, depression, anxiety. Getting the kids back as far as sports go has been really critical and key to getting them back in a good, sound peace of mind in order to participate in school. Some kids really, the sports are what drive them to come to school every day. It keeps them relevant in their classes. And so that's a big deal. This strategic plan is so important because not only do we say what we want to achieve, but we also put numbers behind it. And so probably one of the biggest things that's going to accompany this document is what we call our timetables. The timetables look at things like accreditation, reading and math scores, teacher retention, how many teachers we have occupying our buildings on day one of school. We're looking at safety within the schools. We're looking at student discipline. And so all of these things go through a 5-year, what we call benchmark. We say, where do we want to be at the end of 5 years? And I can tell you right now, we are asking our superintendent for 100% school accreditation at the end of 5 years. We want all of our schools to be accredited. And what does that mean? That looks at graduation rates, that looks at reading and math scores, that looks at a whole lot of different factors, but that's what we want. And so what this does is it gives the community the roadmap of where we want to be as a school division. And then it gives us check-in points. Okay, after year 1, did we accomplish our goal? Yes or no? After year 2, after year 3, after year 4. So anyone can go and look at this document and see, did we hit our marks? If we didn't hit our marks, why? And what do we need to do in order to kind of recalibrate? And so it's a very important document that will help guide us to where we want to be as a school division. And so that was a big achievement that we recently passed. And so I'm very proud of it. And of course, the community always has the ability to review it, to look at it, and to follow along on our data tables. Every school board meeting that we have, a portion of our school board meeting work sessions are going to be to discuss the tables that are within this document. The other thing that I really like about this document, and if you're a business owner or just a community member, it just highlights the amount of the volume that we have in our school division. We have almost 27,000 students, 5,000 employees, and 45 buildings. So it's a big ordeal. I mean, just thinking of giving every child breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, that's a huge operation. 27,000 children, including pre-K-3. So it's a big responsibility. It's a joy. Our children are our best investment as far as I'm concerned. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to achieve with this. So This becomes especially important as we go into our budget, and I'll just put a plug in right now. On December the 14th, we have a public budget hearing on things that maybe you all have some interest in. What you would like to see in the budget, teacher raises, security, more sporting activities, you know, whatever it is that, you know, you feel as an individual, as a stakeholder, that you need to come and speak to us about with regards to that. So are there any questions on the strategic plan? That was a very big overview.
If you don't mind, I'll start. I'll start by saying that it's clearly a big step in the right direction. Because by my observation, I think it's fair to say that we've been a little uneven in which direction we're going with the school division until we've kind of centered around this. So I appreciate the fact that we are back with the strategic plan. I think we've done that in the past. I believe it's been several years since we last were working towards one.
We had something called an accountability plan, which was a very basic form of just some academic standards. There were some other things included in it with regards to school safety and climate and teacher retention. But this is the document that we were wanting to kind of work ourselves towards.
I sense that, you know, from the conversation on passing this, that struck me was you talked about timetables and benchmarks, but what I don't see any of that in the document. And so that's where my concern lies is if you go a couple pages back and it talks about student excellence, right? You know, it talks about measures and everything says increase the percentage of students reading, increase this, increase that. And so where are the timetables and the benchmarks that we're going to be judging our success from?
Sure. So there's an accompanying document that goes along with that. That's just like the booklet, the elevator book, so to speak. The document should be attached on the website with our timetables. With every one of our school board meetings, when we discuss the timetables, it's up there on board docs. So if you wanted to go to our last work session, you could pull up the timetables on there and it would be there. And I can, either myself or Tanya can send you a link to where that is. It's a lot, it's massive.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think we could print it off as a book and just, you know, hand it out. But if anybody wants to go, and I think the goal is to make it live, so that way it can be updated as we speak. And then everybody can have access to it through the web.
Appreciate that.
Yes, so, you know, I'm very, this is like an area that I'm very personally curious about, and I'm interested in learning more about the school board's plans for, like, basically, in looking at safety in our community a lot and spending a lot of time, you know, hearing from community members and teachers, especially, it's like over again, is like kids, the social emotional learning in that is maybe not happening within the home has to have a place to happen. And for me, you know, that sort of logically seems like the school. So I think I love seeing how we're incorporating, you know, mindfulness into the classroom and cognitive behavioral therapy, you know, into sort of how we train our teachers and things like that. But I feel like I hear from a lot of people, super understaffed with day counselors, super understaffed with a specialist for, you know, that the kids really love and really need, and the teachers really love and really need. Because I hear over and over and over again, people say, you know, I can't get to a year's worth, you know, have the standard of learning that I'm teaching to. And I am spending 40 to 50% of my classroom time trying to help a student who has some emotional learning certain needs that have to be addressed, but I can't get that parent to sign the permission slip. That's the medicalized kind of highway that I'm now on with my student if I want them to have therapy with that awesome day counselor that comes in a couple times a week, you know. And so I'm wondering if we're really focusing on that, and what kind of, can we talk a little bit about, you know, for me, my perspective is we have this great physical education program, and what is stopping us from having a mental health version of that same
mental health education or mental health resiliency sort of programming that's not just, oh, a teacher learned how to do it, but like a very conscious kind of work that the student does with some of these really awesome counselors. So can you just maybe speak a little bit more to that and where you see that, you know, playing a role with our students and
Sure.
them becoming emotionally rational adults, you know?
Sure. I'll first speak to it as what we've said and allocated funds for in our budget for the past several budget cycles. Every year, we have allocated more and more funds to psychologists, school psychologists, which both do the educational testing and do testing and therapy for some of our students. We have allocated more funds these past several years, especially this past year for ABA therapists, especially for our students with autism and some other social and emotional disabilities. Dr. Birdsong, our superintendent, has initiated our Grow Your Own program for the school psychologist. As far as the mental health specific therapists, we do contract with different entities in order to bring the services into the building because it's easier for parents. They don't have to take them to therapy. Just like within the school division and in the hospital, we are having a hard time finding the licensure and the training. There are significant shortages out there. CHKD, we have a 9-month wait to get into psychiatry. I have to give outside lists to my patients as far as what they need for therapy needs, just cognitive behavioral therapy or parent therapy.
So that's even a broader need. That
It-
goes
it-
beyond the
it-
school
it-
board.
it's a
We're talking
broader
about
need.
your
It's a broader
partnerships, like citywide.
But I can tell you that we have taken steps in order to try to address as much as possible that we can as a school division in order to try to give the teachers the support that they need, so that way they can focus on the academics. Because at the end of the day, while Gabriel, pediatrician, believes that the whole child needs to be taken care of, and while Gabriel, the school board member, I'm here for the academics. We have to have our academics on target. That's what the schoolhouse is for. Everything else has to kind of feed into it, the food, the behavior, the safety, all of that. But at the end of the day, we are judged on the academics. And for Norfolk Public Schools, as being an urban school division, we do have to carry a lot of burden on us as far as meals, different entities, things that come from the community and the home that are brought into the school division. And we love our children. We want to provide them with as much support as possible. So I can tell you right now that I know that the superintendent is exploring different options with our mental health providers, with CHKD and with others. There's always constant communication with that. But that's kind of where we are. And in this budget cycle, I'm sure that there's going to be even a greater need. In fact, we're getting ready to have what we call our bring your legislator to school day. We have a packet of legislative priorities that we have asked our legislators, our state legislators, to help give us more funding. Because guess what? When we're allocating funding for a psychologist or an ABA therapist, guess what we're not allocating funding for? A teacher. We're not giving a teacher a raise. We're not bringing in a reading specialist. And so if we're having to allocate funds for those things, then what is getting, taken away? And of course, we don't want to take anything away. We want to add on to, and so that's what we need the funding for. So we're pushing state level, federal level, and I'll have to say that, Courtney's here right now. We couldn't do what we do right now with our budget these past few years if we did not have the support of the city. The city has always stepped up to the plate to cover the gaps. When the state lowers our funding, and tell us which, and even this revenue sharing program that we have right now, it really has helped to allow us to give the teachers raises, not the raises that we want to give them, but at least give them raises and kind of accelerate the process. So there's no silver bullet to that question.
And do you feel like part of it is almost like, and I guess I think about this in our society, it's like redefining what the school is now. Like, I think it's
It's totally
decided we like, we
It's
think
totally
that school
redefined.
is one thing, and now, especially post-COVID, I feel like we have completely, like, is this kind of partly what you're trying to do, is like help redefine for people, like what school has to look like now?
In my lifetime, I feel that public school is different. The expectations of public school are different. And that's the reality that we're in. I don't know if anyone else feels the same or different, but that's just how I feel. There's a lot more responsibility and accountability placed on the public school division in order to take care of the needs of the kids. Our school division has one of the largest growing English language learning populations of any of our neighboring school divisions. And with those students, we have to bring in specialist teachers who can help with that. If we don't educate that child, then what is the outcome of that child going to be? We don't want them on the officer's police report. We want them in college or working at the new Sanctuary Taco, you know, we want them employed, marketable, educated, a well-rounded student that can contribute to society. So whatever comes through our doors, which is public school, we have to be ready to take care of all of their needs, but we can't do that without funding or teachers.
So to me, that brings up a kind of a related point, and I watched Tuesday night's city council meeting, and so the Newark Community Street team came in and gave an update to council, and we've had them working with us for close to a year now, and I would say that I was hopeful that we would have gotten farther with the relationship between that organization and Norfolk Public Schools. I mean, basically the day that on Tuesday was the first meeting in a year between NPS and the Newark Community Street team. And so, I mean, if you're looking for budget allocations, like I think we should be looking harder at partnerships with the existing organizations that aren't going to add to your bottom line. I would say that, like, I think there's a amount of potential there, and leveraging these potential partnerships with the community that we should, and I don't say that to be like just, you know, to just get on anybody. I feel very, I mean, so it's both community and safety and climate, right? Because they're talking about safe passage or something about like making sure that kids are not feeling threatened on the schoolyard, on the way to or from, and that has proven track record in other cities where they've done this. And I would encourage the school board to put more pressure on this topic now, because we've had one meeting in a year with NPS. I think we need to do better, and that's not a budget thing. That's a priorities thing.
As far as teacher, everyone being short-staffed, the teacher needing as much as possible, how can the community get involved? For instance, like civic meetings, we are kind of like a liaison between like the community, our neighborhood, and volunteers. So we were watching a school board meeting, most recent school board meeting, and one of the teachers spoke about the shortage of janitors and having to clean their classrooms and the time that they're taking their classrooms. Like, is there a way to create volunteers that I'm sure there's so many people in the community that would be happy to go in and help a teacher?
Yes.
Clean up as, you know, as the kids eat their breakfast in the classroom,
Yes.
there's someone coming in and
Yes.
cleaning up so the teacher can do what,
Oh, yes.
you know, they're meant to
Yeah.
do. Is there a way that, you know, civic leagues can come together and like try to, or does the school district have anything in place for volunteers support for the
Absolutely.
teachers?
Absolutely. We have a website, a link to where anyone who does come into the building and works with the children, they have to do a volunteer, basically like a security check. So that has to get done. So once they have passed that, which is a very quick and easy process, background check, so to speak. Then I would say, it asks you, do you want to volunteer at the school level? Do you have a group that you want to volunteer with, like collectively? Because we have like East Beach Reading Club, we have, Larchmont Civic League, does, some things with Larchmont Elementary, just different areas. And so you can kind of customize what you want to do, like maybe if the Civic League wants to adopt Taylor, for example, or Rutherford, you can do that. This is our first year back without any type of hybrid learning. Last year it was coming back, let's get kids back into the building, let's figure out virtual and combined school. And so this is our first year back completely in person. And so we're getting our groove back, okay, it's slow, but we're trying to get it back. And every volunteer now we need, because as I said, it's all hands on deck. So yes, if you can come in, if the principal at Taylor feels that she could use some extra room parents to come in and help with something like that, that would be great. I know for me in my neighborhood, we do a teacher coffee hour. So it's just we bring breakfast in, we do coffee, hot chocolate, and they have a place to go and do some desserts and coffee. I'm in charge of bringing the bottle up. So,
Is
but
there a way that possibly like the civic leagues can be connected, knowing like which schools are in the most need? Because I know, Taylor has a very active PTA. So
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, you want to go to where the need is. I'm sure there's a mechanism for that, but let me follow up. Ms. Messina and I can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
say, Eunice Brown.
Yeah, she's our community engagement.
She's, the community engagement specialist or director, so she would be a good contact.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared her contact information with Scott before, right? Or maybe not, maybe it was a while ago.
Yeah. Sure.
Either Dr. Gabriel or I shared.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that.
Kate, just
Be
to,
aware, she might be a whole lot on her plate.
there was discussion at the PTA, the Taylor PTA school board or board meeting the other night of reaching out to the Civic League to engage us for some volunteer opportunities that they need. So obviously, and yeah, we've got a great relationship with Taylor, but to get with other schools, I think would be good.
Sure, that's great. And we've even talked about doing a recognition for our volunteer, because we have some individuals who do come and work at our school and they're just amazing. They really do take a lot of the burden off the teachers, and the teachers couldn't do it without them. And we need to be able to recognize them, show our appreciation. But we'll follow up on that. If y'all are good, for the sake of time, why don't we jump into Maury High School, because I know that's a topic of great importance. All right, Maury High School, let's do it. Every year since I've been on the board, I have had the pleasure of visiting Maury High School. I love going and walking the building with the principal, seeing the teachers, the students, going to the games, the functions. I love being able to see all the great things that Maury High School produces. Student scholars, brilliant student scholars that are nationally recognized. Our cross-country team just won the regional cross-country meet. I mean, that's huge. Like, we beat out regional schools. That's a big deal. Our tennis last year, state tennis champions. So much to be proud for here. And the school itself visually is a work of art. Won't deny that. It's beautiful. It makes you stop and pause. It does not look like, to me, it doesn't look like a high school. It looks like college. This is a place of learning. And so we want that. We want that for our kids moving forward, but we also want them to be able to connect to the internet and not have ceiling tiles fall on them, and not be able to put your hand through a wall because the plaster is so crumbled from moisture rot. Those are the situations that they're dealing with every day. Heating and air conditioning issues, just tons of things. That this building was built in 1911. It is one of the oldest serving high schools in the state of Virginia. over 100 years old. It has served its time. It has had over 4 different renovations. And yes.
And even with that, like out of all the 45 buildings, the committee that I served on, by far and away the lowest facilities condition
Yes.
index of the 45 schools. It's like there's all the other ones, and then there's like a gap, and then there's Maury.
Yeah.
Right. It is by people that do this for a living
Yes.
standards. It is in bad shape.
Yes, it is in bad shape. And, you know, during that time on the board, and Courtney will know this very well, we've had discussions about what we want from Warren High School and what the vision is going to be for this school. We even conducted an educational planning survey to talk about, you know, what it is that we need for our students for 21st century learning. That was back in 2018. But until recently, we never had the funding to support that. And now, thanks to City Council, we have approximately 150 million that we can use in order to really make this school a safe place of learning, so we can have the next 100 years of student graduates to come from the program. That's a big deal. Never before have we been able to really have this conversation. And so me, while 10 years, I felt like this a couple of feel like they're running really, really fast, but we have to move fast because the building is falling apart and prices are increasing. And it's finding works and competing against everyone else who's trying to build things is hard. And so we have to take action on this. Every time we kind of push it down the road and push it down the road and push it down the road, it's time that's ticking. So what we've done is we started to have conversations prior to COVID about what we wanted for Maury High School, the planning aspect. We wanted to plan the building from the inside out. There is an incredible program there right now. I'm not sure if any of you know about it, but it's called the Medical Sciences Program. It's a joint collaborative between Eastern Virginia Medical School and the Maury High School. Our students apply to come to that program, and they go through very rigorous studies. They get to do some classes at EVMS. They have mentors there. A lot of the students go on to pursue careers in the medical field. I'm one of them. And so it's an excellent program. We want to make sure that we preserve that program. And so there are a lot of things that went into, you know, what do we want the building, what do we want the program to kind of look like in order to serve the students? And so that's how, based upon that information, there was a list of what we call our non-negotiables. If you kind of scroll through the page, you'll see what that is. So yeah, this talks about in 2018 when they did what they call the educational specifications. So we'll scroll up. So these are the kind of the things that they talked about. Scroll back down. About what they wanted to have inside of the building. Okay. So what they did was they took all of that information together and they created some options for us. We ended up on 4 options that they ended up presenting to the board. 2 options that would look at renovating Maury High School and 2 options that would look at rebuilding it. They looked at many different things and they did a rating scale, they did funding. With all of the information and the feedback that they received from the students and the staff and others who had participated in some information, they basically came to the point of where this option right here, which is B2, which is a rebuild model, kind of rose to the top of where things would align as far as the most favorable, the most economic, and met all the specifications, etc. Now, what I can do, and this is what I've done for all of the civic leagues that I have attended when I've had this presentation, is I can walk you through each of the different proposals. I can do it briefly. If you all would like for me to do that, I can do that. I can talk about pros and cons of each. That's what we did in our community meetings that we had. So if you'd like for me to do that, I can do that. Yes? Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there has been conversation about what were the options under consideration.
Sure. Okay. So when you're looking at this diagram here, you're going to see there's an option A1 and an option A5. Both of those options are renovation options. In order to renovate the building, we would have to put the students in a separate area. So in one of these options right here, we would have to have the students in mobile units for about 2 years. That is a cost.
About 50 portables.
Yes,
Wow.
50 mobile units. I don't even want to talk about bathroom use and safety and a bunch of high schoolers running around. I mean, Harris Teeter thought they had some problems with that. They're gonna have a lot of problems with mobile units. But can we do it? Yes, if that's what we end up doing, we can do it. So that's one option. The other option, as far as the renovation option, actually builds a separate wing, a modern wing, where the students would then have their academic classes in that wing, and then they would go through and renovate the front part of the building and then the other aspects of it. That option would actually be a little oversized, over capacity than what we want. And so, you know, that's one of the options right there. And in some of the previous meetings, we've discussed, well, what's so bad about having a building that's oversized? I mean, I like a lot of extra space, but when you have extra space, that's more janitors, that's more heating and cooling, that's more, more of everything that you have to just allocate for more square footage. Yes.
And one of the major findings from the committee that I was on the kind of larger study that we did as the school division is that we have 5 high schools in Norfolk, but we have 4 high schools worth of students, and that student population is declining and not rising. So if we add capacity, we're adding all of the capital expenses that come along with that, with the declining student population. And that's one thing that came out to me as this came up.
Excellent point. Correct. So if we were to do any of these options, the total cost of just repairing what we have right now is about $76 million. So if we were to do nothing, we would have to invest $76 million in our high school. We don't get that kind of money every year. As generous as the city might be for us, historically, we've only gotten $3 million. $3 million won't even put a roof on a building. So, the other aspect that I've heard about it is, well, why haven't you maintained the building properly? It's really hard to maintain one building when you have 45. Yes.
What year was this put together? What year did they get these budgets?
This is as of
Current.
3 months ago.
It's current. So just sorry to jump ahead, but you have 4 options here. Everything that you talked about with the state of repair that Maury is in screams, deferred maintenance. What's going to change once you build a new building or renovate this one? That's not going to make that new building or the renovation be the same way down the road.
That's a great question also. And so these past few years, we've been able to receive more money from our city council in order to allocate funding for some of those maintenance issues. With the pandemic funds, we've been able to receive a lot of federal grants that have allowed us to upgrade so many of what our HVAC units in our buildings. We've been able to allocate funds for windows and doors, but once those pandemic funds go away, we're going to be in the same situation. It's important to know that the state does not fund 1 penny towards any type of maintenance or capital improvement. It all comes from the locality. And so it's really up to us as the taxpayers in order to, put pressure or ask city council in order to allocate more funding specifically for building maintenance.
Well, what about applying pressure at the state level too? Is that something that everybody engages in?
That is something that we're asking for.
Specifically can be.
Yes.
Yes. Advocates.
I would,
There are school modernization bills that are being considered to that point. Yeah. So absolutely, can civic leagues, advocate on our behalf? Absolutely, all the time for any of our needs,
I mean, you can take our legislative, we're gonna finalize it at our December 14th meeting, and you can take it and run with it. When you write your senators, when you email them, your delegates, you can say, I fully support the NPS legislative practice, and I want to highlight blah, 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 because it directly impacts me, your voter in your district. there are so many schools in Virginia that are old and need a lot of repair.
And so that leads me right into what my comment was going to be coming out of my experience with the capital improvement study that was done. I can't remember what it was called. It was something slicker than that, but we kind of have to get our house in order to make a compelling case for more money, right? So like we have 4 high schools worth of students and 5 high schools. So I need more money to repair my 2 high schools. And it's like, well, why don't you just get rid of one and then we'll talk about one of them, right? Like, from my perspective of experience with like the federal budget process, we don't really have a strong case to be the biggest need because we've got so many loose ends. Now, the study that we did brought a lot of that into focus, and I think we have a stronger case, and there's this capital improvement strategy, I think is what it's called. And I think that went a long way, but I'm concerned that we don't yet
So
have a strong
the
case.
term that we have for that is educational planning. And we are not just looking at the high schools, but we're also looking at a lot of elementary schools too. And so in years previous, just recently, we've combined that with Fairlawn and that pre-K center. We closed down Poplar Halls Elementary School. We had discussions about Lindenwood Elementary. However, we received a lot of community feedback about, their thoughts on that school, and we kind of changed directions. And also, in that program that you were part of, I think Lindenwood was on the other one, and Carrollton was on there as well. So you're right, the house. And after we so it's not just Maury High School, actually. I mean, I know we're talking about Maury High School right now, but the city has allocated for North Elementary, Cox, and a new Granby Elementary. So we do have a lot of homework to do and work as a board in order to kind of look at capacity, need, zoning, so that way we can take some schools offline and not have to really spread ourselves so thin.
And I think that gets that to the deferred maintenance question that Francis brought up. It's like, we're a little over invested right now, evidently, so.
I think we definitely need more dollars to take care of what we have, and even if we do take a couple of buildings offline, we can still need some more dollars.
So if there's 5 high schools and enough population for 4, and you were to consolidate, would that possibly change the size of the new Maury that you're going to build?
I don't think so.
No.
Right now, the capacity is 1,743 students. The enrollment is 1,591. We're shooting for approximately 1,900 students. When you build something new, there are more students that are attracted to it.
Sure.
So we want to be able to, offer that. In our specialty program, we also want to grow our specialty programs because it's very attractive for a lot of students and do some more offerings there. I think that that's a good number for us. But I totally see your perspective. And right now, as far as the 5 recent schools that we built, Larchmont, Richard Bowling, Ocean View Elementary, Camp Allen, and Camp Estella, we are able to maintain those buildings a lot easier. They're more energy efficient materials and whatnot. But that is going to be a challenge. And I can tell you that Dr. Birdsong, she does have a dynamite team put together as far as maintenance, building assessments, looking out for economical things to do in-house, like our own plumbers, our own painters, our own versus contracting a lot of things out. So.
I'm sure this is a very complicated and a lot that goes into this, but why does A5 have to be over capacity? Like, I mean, I realize you're trying to avoid portables, so I assume as you're building the addition, it needs to be big enough to house everybody while you're renovating the old structure. Is there a middle ground there, like to preserve the old structure? Maybe have some portables, not the most like A1, but something that is less
less of an impact to students, but allows you to preserve, it keeps the cost down, it doesn't put you way over capacity, like what's?
Yeah, I think each of these little perspectives that you see here is just a rough draft. So the real question is, rebuild or renovate. I mean, that's really what the question is. And as we look at the other ones, you know, the big difference for example, option C1 is 6 stories versus 4 stories. There are a lot of challenges with 6 stories. I mean, the teachers were like, oh, it's gonna take forever for the kids to change classes. It's a security issue. It's a little bit more costly. In fact, price goes up that way. But so there's pros and cons to each of them, but everything that is in each of these options, is that set in stone? No, it's not set in stone. This conversation is still to be continued as far as, well, once we narrow it down to, let's say, an option B or an A5, then what are the next steps? So I think we still have wiggle room. And then I know Ms. Basine, Tanya, you had.
Just what you had just said is there will be subsequent design meetings, so like community engagement sessions around the design aspect of it. So, but I hear you with the, that was a comment that came up in some of our community meetings, the 2 community meetings that we heard. It depends on perspective, like, could that be that extra building space? Could it be used for community purposes? Could it be, what, like, think outside the box of like other uses for it that could also help draw in, potential funds or, that could support it. But, you're to Scott's point too about, do we have the students for all 5 high schools? That's a whole other, conversation, a big conversation. Even looking at our, our attendance zones and, which is something that I think the board does agree has to be part of this as well. But, for this initial phase with these buildings that Dr. Gabriel was talking about,
I mean, I know that's a big question, but it seems like when you're spending this much, maybe this is the most, I assume this is the most Norfolk's ever spent on a new school or a renovated school. That should be part of the conversation. If the enrollment is that low and you can already see that you maybe have excess capacity already.
Well, for this school, Dr. Gabriel mentioned, it is at, the capacity is in a good place.
Right.
So this school is, and the attendance zone, the current attendance zone for this school is in a good place. So that's why, I think we feel like, we can do something with this building. Yes.
Yeah, Senator County, a little bit of a background, been involved with the school in Maury for a little less than 10 years. And was invited by the city to take a tour. And everything you said was correct 9+ years ago. And there's this issue about modernization or restoration versus new. Okay, even back then. There's also an in-between measure. So at that time I was president against Civic League. I took it upon myself. I called the State Historic Preservation Officer. I explained the situation of Maury, which is exactly what we have today. And I asked him, we can not possibly be the only school in the state under this scenario. And he said, no, absolutely not. He gave me a number of them. And the one that came the closest was John Handley High School in Winchester, Virginia. I contacted them. They briefed me over the phone, what they did, how they, by the way, the city much smaller than Norfolk. And I invite everybody to look at John Handley School and what it looks like and how they did it. I asked them if they were willing to host a presentation, if I brought people from the school board city council. It's about 3.5 hours from here. And they said yes. But there were no takers on this side. And this, so this is a little bit of the personal issue with. I put together, this is about 11-page presentation about how can we do this project where both sides, the preservationists and the 21st century folks, could be successful. I gave it to two different generations of city council, and it's pretty much died in the farm. Do we have anybody on your board that has facility issue experience? You know, that they have worked with facility. And goes back to the gentleman's point. So I'll give you just a general. Every building in the United States deteriorates at 2% a year. Your house, every building. What does that mean? There's a whole computation, but at the end of the day, it's your repair and maintenance budget should be somewhere between $250 and $3,000 a square feet. In 2015, it was $80,000. When I did the math, it was about 32 cents a square feet. If we decide to demolish Maury, it will be for absolute neglect. And so this is not an issue where you put your punch through the hole, so on and so forth. We have been culpable on this issue. So I invite, and I would volunteer time as I did before to work with whoever. We don't need to, it's okay that we've done this, but remember, other communities in Virginia have gone through this. And again, I will resurrect Handley as a success where the community came together and they're proud of their facilities. Maury is really part of the historic cultural patrimony of the city. And I think that a lot of people don't understand what that means. I think we've been for years, 22 years I've been here, we've been enamored with the glass and chrome too much.
And then, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna ask that very question, like I mean, before the, I think it was B2 that was proposed, were there other examples of adopted previous, like viewed by anybody on board or anybody who's been part of this process?
No, these are the options that were presented to us.
So I understand, but I guess were there any other renovated schools like the one you described in Winchester or anything similar in the state or anywhere else? Like, look at any examples of those.
Yeah, so there were some of them, as a matter of fact,
Right.
the governor's school in Richmond, as a matter of fact.
Well, our governor's school was.
Yeah, so, yeah, and I can leave this with you, so if you're interested, but we're not the only ones and we're not the first ones
Yeah, not really.
at this crossroad.
Sure.
So I think if we could kind of segue the conversation into some of where we talked about this beforehand. The conversation right now, well, I can speak for West Kent Civic League Board. When the 10 civic leagues it was opened up to numerous civic leagues to talk about how, hey, we need to engage more on this topic, right? The West Kent Civic League Board came down unanimously not on option A1, A5, B2, C1, but 53 people does not constitute the city of Norfolk's opinion on this topic. And because that's what we're going with right now. And that was discussed at the school board meeting, and the numbers underpinning the overwhelming majority of people, 42 people, 43 people's opinion is that we should move with option A5 or I'm sorry, B2. So that begs the question, like, so questions that have been flown around that we've seen are things like, does the firm that the school division hired have any experience doing something like they did in Winchester? Are they a hammer, so everything looks like a nail to them? And I think that a more thorough and genuinely two-way engagement process would have revealed some of these questions earlier. And that's where I think the nature of the concern is that I'm sensing from the folks that I speak with, is that, you know, so there's clearly, there were more options considered because they're labeled things like A5. So what were A2, 3, and 4, and is there a 6, right? The engagement process started with these 4. And so I think there's a lot of people asking questions like, well, could we creatively reuse Maury High School in another form or fashion that does not support the school division? Or is there some hybrid method? Like, I think that the nature of people's concern is that we are not fully considering a full range of options. And I don't think it's, they know that this firm, like, I don't think too many people know too much about this firm. I think it's out of Virginia Beach, but I think these are valid questions that we need to answer. And when we wrote this letter asking to kind of pump the brakes, if you will, the thing that is kind of exacerbated the issue is that now what is being pitched as the survey is like, do you like that option or do you not like that option? Right? So it's like, we were saying like, hey, isn't there more to discuss here? And like, instead of saying, well, here's 4 and just doing more of the survey, it's now like, do you like that option or not? And it's going, the call for further engagement is going the opposite direction of what we intended it to when we wrote the letter.
Well, maybe, Scott, something that is helpful is to, like, for us to come up with very specific questions that we can kind of pass along, because I think it's hard to sort of solve, like, get to the deep bottom of like what everybody is after, or the answers that we're looking for. So it's like, maybe there's like a list of questions from the civic leagues, like we can continue to engage that work. It's like, maybe we can address some things specifically, you know, that kind of reach out to what we're saying. Cause like, I'm very interested in the historic tax credits as well, because if we're working in a fiscally, you know, responsible way to modernize it, like, is that part of that, you know, the calculation, you know, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I can speak to that, and that's actually an important point. With the tax credits, you're only eligible for state tax credits if we renovate the building as a schoolhouse. So, and that is because it is not an income producing. For one option, it's about 7.6 million. For another option, it's about 6.some million of credit. Yeah, which is not very minuscule. It's, I mean, we're dealing with $150 million.
And is that 7 million subtracted from this modernization?
It's included in it. It would be included in it, and so it's very minimal. It does not compete with any of the federal tax credits that could be possible if it was an income generating property.
Do you have a ballpark what those credits would be if it were like, and an income generating property would be non-school?
It would just be, I mean, it would be like, it couldn't be a school.
Right.
It couldn't be a public school. You know, it couldn't be a public.
And are there
school.
federal tax credits for the replacement options? Like, is that?
No.
So no tax credits or replacements.
No.
But I don't believe we're having a talk about, I don't think, am I wrong? But we're not having a, like, we're only considering these options because this is the only thing we can afford conversation.
I mean, this is what they came to us with regards to the program. It all started with, what do we want inside of the building? And then they generated that these models based upon that. Do these meet all the needs? The capacity, the program, the athletics, the workspaces, all of that.
Those criteria.
Yeah, those criteria. And so overwhelmingly, when it was looked at from teachers, from the building leaders, from students, from parents and staff, I know I put in my feedback. It was B2 that kind of came and rose to the top. I know this isn't the slide, this is more of the money slide right here, but there was a lot more in-depth conversation from teachers and staff and parents within the division as to, you know, what this program, where it would kind of align. So, I mean,
And I think
150 is what we have.
That's an important factor too, though. It's like we as a civic league might not have children. You know, I don't have kids at Maury for quite some time, so for me, I'm like, yeah, like, but for me, it's like I can't visualize like what it would look like and what the, so, you know, it's important to have the feedback from teachers and people who use the space every day and people who are currently in this, so I think that's valuable.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to the one question that came up at the community meeting that the consultant answered was we can reuse materials like the terracotta and the, you know, from the marble, like all, you know, from the current building. So I just wanted to share that.
Has there been discussion? There was a lot of great discussion. The aesthetic and the reuse of materials. Like, if you go to the-
There's the consultants that not stopping us from whoever ends up, you know, doing the contract, saying, we want you to build it exactly the way that it looked. Just in this configuration. I mean, there's nothing from,
That hasn't been discussed, that's not factored in.
it's not factored into any of this. It was just basically, you know, like, what are we need to make a narrow in this building.
Because does money go away? Does it stay? Like you're talking about these college funds, like it's.
This back, you know, it's great. If we need a temporary that God forbid ever hits this. We will have to go with 4 high schools, you know, I mean, because it's not safe for our kids to be in this building.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
life
we're doing
cycle
everything we
cost
can.
is like pretty substantial. It's $20 million life cycle cost.
Yeah, actually,
it seems like.
Well, there's an even better slide. If you keep
Water
going
and
up. Yeah, keep going up. Keep going up. It's all the way towards the end. Show you. But Kate, I know you had a question. Okay. Are there any questions from the viewers online?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So as far as like moving forward, wanting more engagement, what I know that the administration reached out to faith leaders and they had a meeting. What would that look like if we were to facilitate them out civically?
Yeah.
In order to connect more with the neighborhoods that do feed into one.
Yeah. And I definitely would say that connecting with the community outside of NPS, parents and teachers and staff members is definitely something that is completely on the radar of the superintendent, because we have been very vocal about that. I know Steve has been, I have been, we needed to see a lot more greater engagement. The faith-based meeting essentially took place. We had a faith-based meeting for Booker T. Washington, which is undergoing a very similar renovation. What we do for one, we should try to do for the other, kind of going back to the equity issue. And so that's why I think the superintendent is a little bit challenged with regards to getting a form together quickly for us right now. Because, not that we can't establish good practices, which I think as we go into the next phase of this, that definitely that's going to be something that we can do. And so I would say that I think that we definitely can do that and we can work towards that. But that's how that faith-based meeting came about. And just the time frame that we're in right now between now and Thanksgiving, and up into December, I don't think it was gonna work out. And what we do for one, we would have to do for, the others. So we're just trying to be equitable. Not that this isn't a hugely important topic, and we're talking about an entire building here. But I know that the engagement is going to definitely increase. We want all of the good positive feedback, collaborative relationship to be there.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, I keep asking hard questions. So we're gonna move ahead with a vote in December and just say that we couldn't pull together an engagement because scheduling or equity? Or are we gonna defer the school board decision until we've conducted the engagement?
As your school board representative right now, I'm totally on board with voting in December. I can't, we've done a lot of work with regards to this. And so moving ahead for the sake of our students who are in the building right now and the staff and the timeline that we're under with the funding, I'm in support of moving ahead in December.
And that's why I offered that maybe we can help facilitate some of these tougher questions by maybe kind of funneling them into one place.
I think that's perfectly
For some
appropriate.
of our
We can,
civic
we
leagues
can send them
and say,
to our,
And everybody can.
our consultants, they can respond, but
I'm sorry, you're gonna vote on
Seeing a lot of
it's
stuff.
A, B, or C in
Yes.
December?
yes. On
But
December 14th.
this is the first time that I've seen any of this.
So when you say you've done a lot of work, when you say we've done, we being,
The school board, we've had numerous community meetings, we've had forums, we've had parent surveys.
So, but it resulted in 53 people
Yeah.
responding in a city of 200,000 people,
Meetings, it's 2 meetings.
right? And so I think what got me going in the school board meeting from a few weeks ago was I feel like we're giving out A's for effort and not A's for results. Okay, like, so I feel that, yes, I fully acknowledge that the school division tried to engage the community. I think that the result of 0 responses to an electronic survey and 53 people showing up at 2 meetings constitutes a failure to engage. And I'm actually more concerned that we're going to move forward on that basis than the decision that we make coming out of that.
The basis for all of my decisions is for what is in the best interest of the students. That's the basis for all of my decisions. So
That's really not.
Really was the same issue, right? So what does a few months, whether we send it out into January or February, a few months when we waited 10+ years to do something about it, when you can actually engage the community, build up more trust, get more of a collaborative effort here from people. I think that's what people are having a hard time with, is that we're just going to adjust to this decision when, I mean, like Scott said, it was a failure to engage, and so we just accept that failure or recognize that this didn't work out. We can figure out how we're going to move forward and engage more, and then make a decision, and whether that be, you know, after the first of the year, what is a few more months when we waited?
I mean, so to further just like air this out, and I've spoken with both you and Tanya, right? I mean, 10 civic leagues, independent civic leagues got together on short notice, and civic leagues don't do anything on short notice, okay? Got together on very short notice, aligned around a statement of purpose, and communicated with the school division our displeasure with the process, okay? And I was nominated by the group of 10 leaders to be the go-between with the school division. I mean, I've communicated via 5 different means to try to communicate with the school board chair, and he has never acknowledged my existence. So like, imagine my distrust of your statement that we just can't pull together a meeting before Christmas if I can't get a response from, and on behalf of 9 other civic league presidents, a response from somebody about our concerns. So I just, those 2 things are not congruent with one another. So until we start having I watched the school board meeting the other night, and there was a lady who I wish I was as eloquent as her, who spoke and talked about where we're at with the relationship between the community and the school division. Her name was Sharon Houston.
yes,
Okay. And the fact that to summarize way less eloquently than her, the fact that we cannot get a bona fide two-way conversation going speaks to the lack of respect, in my opinion, that the school division is showing to the community. And so as someone that votes for you and you, I just want you to understand that, like, I wholeheartedly disagree with your position on moving forward in December.
I understand, I respect that.
Because if we can't engage in discourse as a community respectfully with one another, then we're not, like, what would we be doing with a building? So it just defies all logic.
So why do you feel like it's really the best option for my student? Why do you feel that?
I feel that B2 is the best option with what we have been presented because it, number one, satisfies all the program needs of the students. It is what a lot of the building administrators who are in the building each and every day and who are implementing the programs for the kids, that's what they have said are the needs. They're the educators, the boots on the ground, so to speak. As I said before, I've toured the building myself. I have a full understanding of the dire need in order to act for this building. The cost definitely is a factor. I don't want to displace students in mobile units. Safety is a huge factor for that. And I'm also looking at the longevity for the next 100 years because we may not ever have another opportunity to build more schools, after this point in time of this massive undertaking. I do think that we can.
When we did Blair, didn't we put the students in mobile units?
Yeah,
We did.
and when we did Granby, and I lived through that, we transferred from one building to another.
Yes.
I mean, and the fact that we're talking about the fact that we may never get to build another school is maddening to me. We have 45 buildings. We should be building a new building every year.
We should.
And
We're talking about funding, state level funding. We're getting access to these funds. I mean, I remember when it was like $3 million. I was like, how do we even work with that? Like when the budget is $3 million.
I mean, all these bases that of talking about, like, we'll never get money again. We should be having conversations and then deciding what we're gonna do with it.
So that's every for more funding for maintenance. We and the city can give us the money or it can't give money. And most of the time they do try to increase our funding, but that, you're right. We need all the help we can get for that.
Yeah, it feels like you're trying to cure a symptom here. You're not really curing what the problem is. You want to try to reach out and build this building, which is going to be like a 3 or 4 year process.
It is.
If the RFP went out tomorrow, it wouldn't be done until then, realistically. Gentleman said he's been this for 9 years. It's the same story. What's waiting a few more months to get the community more involved?
Right.
To get a lot of problems just in the past 5 minutes with this entire thing. I think it's time to pump the brakes a little bit and get some more people involved. What's going on with this?
If this is the potentially last one we're gonna build for a while, like, exactly, why not take all the time? I mean, not all the time, but a little extra time to actually get it right instead of rushing to which it feels rushed. I mean, I think that's what it sounds like it's coming out. And I think we also started at the beginning with talking about stakeholders in the city, and I know you want what's best for students is number one, no question, but there are a lot of stakeholders in this city. There are a lot of us here, and they're, it's, I just think if we're talking about stakeholders, then I think we really do need the input from all of them.
Yeah, so we agree that, this building belongs to the city of Norfolk. I would advocate that we're not stakeholders. This is the city of Norfolk, the people on this side. And so more than stakeholders, we're ownership. We have our owners. And I think that there have been a lot of well-intended efforts from your part. But we feel that we have been brought late into this for then a rush decision.
Well, can you guys maybe speak to that? Because I don't want there to be this one-sided notion that like, it was a failure, totally. It's, you maybe speak to like, why, I think I think we talk a lot about community and like what you guys are saying, correct me if I'm wrong. The community of the school system and the school board and those boots on the ground, it's like, those people have been considered tremendously. Like, we might be talking about a 0, I'm not sure what the stats are, but you know, maybe people didn't respond electronically or only 50 people showed up. But can you maybe talk about, like, from your perspective, like why you feel like you know, this was like a lot of hard work done and other consultants, maybe talk a little bit about like what other community members that aren't us, like who are those people, who, like, why do you feel confident in it? Because of, you know, because I don't want there to be just this feeling of like, you failed, because I don't feel that way. I just feel like, I know as a community, like organizer and stuff, it's like, it's difficult. Like, you can plan it, people don't always come. So like, you have to really, I kind of want to hear your perspective of like,
Newspaper.
yeah, and I learned a lot about it. Like, so like, on some hand, I'm paying more attention to somebody that's not in the school, but at the same time, I just want to give you the opportunity to leave open the door and say, well, I'm curious what section of the community we did, because we don't know much about it either, like how to feel about it. It's kind of strong feeling about that.
Right, so I'll say that an incredible amount of effort went into the programmatic planning of what goes on inside the building. And for us, the ed specs, for us, that was critical and important because that's what we want for our students. And there were several community meetings that were held prior to COVID. Student groups, universities were invited, ODU, EVMS, all of them were part. You were there, I was there. We were open and listening. So I'm very sound on what was produced with the ed specifications. Then we had COVID, and then we had to kind of stop a lot of our community engagement and went to kind of some virtual meetings in order to kind of complete the very tail end of it. And then here we are right now. We have funds that the city has given us to build Maury, Granby Elementary, Norview, and Jaycox. And this has just never been possible before. And so we've been talking and talking and talking about it. And for us, it just feels like forever. And we do want to rush it because we're like, okay, we've had these plans and they've been sitting on a shelf and they're great, but now we actually need a building for our kids to be in. And so I just feel like time is of the essence, and I don't want to discount, you know, including the community and the feedback, and I think there's probably a win-win that we can work out
There
with
is.
this.
There is. I think it's an issue of, I can see the amount of work you've done.
There's no.
With the funding,
Yeah.
You probably feel like you caught lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
now we want to do is drive like we stole it.
yeah.
Okay, let's drive like we stole it, right? So, but just to give you an idea, a couple of hours ago, so my wife called me because apparently, so she got the email about the vote online. And I will tell you, and she's pretty smart cookie, but it was very. I'll give you the words you said. That the survey was, you know, the words was obtuse. In order to make a vote of yes or no. I mean, it just for,
Yeah.
you know, for the average person, it was probably either too complicated or over thought, but it just, yeah, so I'm not sure that even that will be a good indicator. And by the way, and I'd say it, when people don't understand, the easy way to say is no.
Well, I was just gonna say, as you know, as another voice on the school board, you know, I can acknowledge that, you know, the survey was, you know, I agree, you know, the survey was not at its best, but you know, I want to share a little bit about the school board, just to pause and pause for a second on our role. We're a seven-member board. Dr. Gabriel is one voice. I respect her voice and her right to share her perspective and the information that she uses to make her decision. And I use sometimes the same information, but we might come to a different conclusion. But can still be here to listen to, the feedback that we're receiving tonight. Because we also have different perspectives and come at it from different ways. We've been hearing, like, she's been on the board for 10 years. I've been on the board for 7.5 years. We've talked to countless students, countless parents, kids who have walked out and will say, hey, look at my back. Can you see the wall is like attached to my shirt, or, when we visit classrooms, we see the mold, teachers using mops to catch the rain, through the windows. I mean, it is, we're human beings and we see the emotion in it too, that this is where we send our kids to school. And, I think, like you said, we are culpable for that. We, meaning we as a community, not just the school board, but our, at the state level, at the city level, we are all culpable for this. And so this is where we are, and I agree, we were talking, and as Dr. Gabriel, I think, said when we started, but while we've had these conversations, we have never been at this point where we have, the consultants did what we asked them to do. We said, come back to us with, rebuild or renovate options. And they did that. And those were the 4 options. The RFP didn't say, go out and look at, we were saying, go look at other renovated schools, come back with designs. And, it wasn't that. And we are not experts by any means, which is why we have consultants to come back and bring us their expertise and their recommendations, so that the 7 of us who are from various backgrounds, none of us architects, none of us, contractors, none of us, with any idea how to build a high school, are relying on these experts. And so this is what they have come up with. Do I agree? Dr. Gabriel's giving her voice about, what you think, and, about taking a vote. But there's 6 others board members who may, because we're giving what the last board meeting resulted in was, okay, we're gonna have a public hearing, so if we're saying right now we're taking a vote, doesn't matter. That's saying, why even come to a public hearing, right? But we are taking that opportunity. I personally hope that we can take a little more time to have the community engagement with the consultants, so you can ask those specific questions to experts versus us who, will just
take notes and send it to.
We're taking notes and say, did we get the term right? Did we, it's like, because these are all very good questions. And I do think that this is our school. It is not our school. It is not.
The community members that were present at the community meeting asked those questions.
Right.
All the administrators were there. All the HPA consultants were there. Our ed planner was there.
Right. But I think we agree that there could always be more.
Absolutely.
And yes, I absolutely agree that we have done a better job to engage other organizations and others, civic leagues across the city.
Yes.
Apparently, while I know we worked our butts off to get the word out, there's clearly a gap, right? I mean, because of who showed up, how many people showed up, somewhere that there's a disconnect. And so could we do more? I personally think that we could. That's my individual voice. Dr. Gabriel has her voice, but there's outside of us, there's 5 others.
When I felt like the train was going down the tracks, I started calling my civic leagues. And I'm like, all right, let me start calling, because this is going fast. And you're right, once we got that money, it was like, we better figure out how we're gonna use it. Cause I don't want them to take it away. But, you know, I reached out to you guys.
Which is why you're here,
Say-
yeah. Yeah.
And I said, strategic plan, Maury High School, let's get it on the books and start talking about it, because, you know, as board members and representatives of the community, we have to also, you know, get out there and get the information out as well. And so, you know, we're all trying to do our part, but we know that there is a lot of improvement that needed to happen as far as community engagement outside of parents and teachers and those who are directly within the Norfolk Public Schools, you know, reach.
Yes. So a couple slides ago, I did see that there were 3 community engagement efforts, you know, but I knew about those because I get bombarded with the Norfolk Public Schools phone calls because I have children in Norfolk Public Schools. However, when Scott called me to see if as a board member, I would endorse signing the letter, I realized Scott and Kate don't currently have children in Norfolk Public Schools, so they were unlikely to get bombarded with those same phone calls that I got. So it became very clear to me at that point that, yes, you guys did a wonderful job of engaging those folks who were directly stakeholders, but, you know, Kate and Scott's kids might go to Maury, you know, eventually, or what about the kids, you know, parents who have 3-year-old kids who aren't in Norfolk Public Schools? They probably weren't as aware of the goings on. And obviously the participation in those wasn't, I would not say satisfactory. We then got the opportunity to say, hey, wait, okay, this train's gotten a little further and I didn't go. So that's on me, you know, so I'm not saying like, hey, wait a second, I didn't have my chance to do it because I had every opportunity to. However, there are stakeholders outside of the community who said, hey, stop, let's pump the brakes just a little bit, maybe get one more opportunity, and then you guys can make the determination, okay, we've satisfactorily engaged the community. So I'm kind of with Scott, is like, what's one more, you know, like, let's.
And I think it's how we do it, right? So I was aware, broadly speaking, because I read the news. I consider myself to be trying to pay attention to what is going on here in the city, everywhere, right? And I knew that there was a meeting at Maury High School at some point. But what the communication lacked was any sort of like, and a decision is coming in November, right? And so what I think we continue to lack is, I mean, we lack, like, here's the end in mind, here's the decision timeline, here's where we're going to a decision. It seems like a lot of the decisions we make with the board seem to be like on a Friday, the agenda gets laid out, and then a frenzy starts on what is going to happen on Wednesday, right? I don't understand why we didn't communicate what the decision timeline was going to be, and then nest that in within it. And then a bunch of folks wouldn't have been caught surprised. It could have been like, we've been communicating that the decision is coming on November 15th for the last 6 months. And so here's what it was, right? Like, so that's frankly how Karen from the Ghent Neighborhood League called me. She's like, we had no idea this train was moving this fast. And we need to pump the brakes now because this is out of nowhere, right? And she had literally no idea that this was going on until recently. And then she reached out to you to try to get the Civic League, her Civic League engaged. So I second your point of the transparency and the communication. Like we really want to partner with Norfolk Public Schools as the West Ghent Civic League. And I know that many other people that I communicate with in that circle of Civic League people all want to do the same thing. We definitely need to make a pointed effort to improve the outreach.
Can we say only because of the time that it is right now? Can we say, let's generate that list of questions? Okay, as Tanya said, I am one of 6.
Can this consultancy like
Yes,
be a part of
absolutely.
that?
Well, what I'm proposing is generate the list of questions, all of them. Don't leave anything out. And then we're gonna send that list of questions to the consultants And then they can respond and perhaps put on an FAQ on the webpage.
Or even consider, a lot of these are your community engagement person, they could even be notes for that. It's like an editorial in the pilot that outlines what we are talking about, or the answers to some of those questions. Like, I mean, their editorial board is very open to that sort of stuff. So you could do a guest columnist kind of thing and really outline for everybody, this is what's happening, these are the answers to some of the questions, and this is when the decision is going to be delivered. Here's one more chance to get your,
And
you know.
and we have a school board work session on the 7th. And we have a school board public hearing that is taking place no, the work session on the 7th is also a public hearing for Maury High School and Ruffner. Ruffner is another school that we are kind of revisioning, redeveloping. And then we have our business meeting on the 14th. So all the consultants will be there on the 7th. The administrators will be there on the 7th.
And this is where,
At the school board building, in downtown Norfolk. It is it's the building that also has the juvenile detention, yeah. 800 East City Hall Avenue.
Well, sure.
Question from chat for you real quick. Does the money have a deadline?
I don't, that would be a Courtney question.
I mean, as current, as part would, doesn't mean that you can't just change the creation.
I mean, if we can't come to an agreement.
You can just buy it now.
Yeah, I mean, no, and I'm not saying, if you were to extend it, a month or two, but the longer we delay, the more expensive things will come. So.
Another related question, but related to, does anyone know if pre-K is scheduled for Lawrence Front or Taylor? The
Yes,
question's been sitting out there.
There. Pre-K 4,
Yeah.
I don't know about pre-K 3.
Not at Taylor.
There's no pre-K at Taylor?
No,
Okay,
4.
there-
There's
yeah,
pre-K
right,
4, not
right,
pre-K
yeah,
3.
and the large one is only pre-K 4, not pre-K 3.
Is that the individual like a follow-up, are asking about for next year or currently?
Unclear.
Okay, all right.
I'm very happy to support as many pre-K classrooms as they want in any of our buildings.
Yes.
And our pre-K program in NPS is wonderful. It's outstanding. Okay, well, I really appreciate the engagement. I know this is a very, it's a huge topic conversation. I'm your neighbor. I am, your fellow Norfolk citizen. I want what's best for everyone here. And reached out and said, let me get in here. Let's chat. We're gonna try to do the best thing. Okay, and let's generate those questions. Please go ahead and just send them to both Tanya and myself. We will then send them to the superintendent, which is on protocol, send them to the superintendent. And we can, request that I think you be put up and see if we can get some movement there. And if there's anything else that we can share from tonight, which I always share the feedback, we can follow up on that. Okay.
Really, really, really appreciate you reaching out to us. To want to come and talk about both these topics. Before these became kind of what they are today, as far as the hot topics or whatever you want to call it that they are. So I appreciate your willingness to come and engage, and I hope we can do a lot more of this. And we're looking forward to doing a lot more across the range of topics.
I think some of those little social events that you have, would be a great opportunity also for staff and administrators to come in, meet the community, and we can kind of, maybe we can do a tag team, something like that. And NPS, and I think that's a wonderful idea.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah.
so the
We're adjourned.
Yeah.
Conversation for a barrel.
So.
We had a little bit. We gotta ask you to come with us. It's, there's no clear good answer. There's no.